So good afternoon, everyone here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and also in Australia. And welcome to this little series of Love Speaks. And today I have two beautiful guests with me, Beverly and Claudia, and we're going to be talking and discussing, just chatting really, about the shadow and how that affects us, what it is all about, because we hear a lot of it being talked about, and and we just thought that we'd go over the subject and see what you might want to bring into the conversation as well. So if you have any comments or you've got questions or anything you'd like to share, please go into the comments underneath the recording here, and we'll pick them up as best we can. So each of us are tuning into the comments on our threads, and and we'll bring you into the conversation. So the shadow, we get a bit, I was just having a chat with somebody the other day around shadow work, and this person was talking about the journey inward and the discovery of parts of himself in the shadow, and he said it was just, and I said shocking, and he laughed. He said, yes, shocking. And it can be when we can be sometimes pointing finger at somebody else, and then when we look inward at ourselves and what part we play in this, we see the reflection of that same behavior in us, and it can be a real shock. I know I've had many processes on that exact thing and the shock. But welcome, ladies. So lovely to have you here with us.
Yes, awesome to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, lovely to share the space with you, Mandy.
Beautiful
Because shadow is one of my favourite things to talk about.
It is. I know, Bev. It's a great thing, and you do so much work and with people. Work, I suppose, is we say work, isn't it? It's certainly not play when you're going into the shadow, but it can be.
Well, it can be, and because what I've discovered is the gifts that you hold there. Like when you don't explore your shadow, you forget the gifts that you've held suppressed by the shadow are quite enormous.
Yeah.
When we were going to come in and do the shadow, of course, things go around in your mind. And one of the ones that I remembered for myself around the shadow was being in a workshop and really having to look at my shadow part of, whatever it was that was going on at the time. But what was uncovered was the fact that I knew how to do voodoo. I knew I'd been trained in other lives, or it was actually a parallel life, around doing voodoo spells. Well, within a week, I had a client turn up. I had no clue where they came from. They just turned up. And the sister was bringing her brother in. He could hardly walk, could hardly speak. And she said that they came from the Seychelles, and she said that he had a voodoo spell on him. So I could easily help him to release that, and he walked out of my rooms.
Wow.
And if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have discovered that gift.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So I found that, that was pretty astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So these spells go a long way too. It's not just about our own, well, it is our own stuff because we are part of everything. But it uncovers things that we'd forgotten.
Yes, absolutely. I know I went into I had a real vision and experience of myself in another lifetime, I suppose, or experience somewhere. And she was pretty wild, this woman. She was a healer as such, and she lived underneath this huge big tree, and right down underneath in the roots of the tree. And she'd had this beautiful little space in there. And she had these leather like pieces of leather with talons on them. And she would go into like a banshee yell and whirl these things around and actually like split people and, oh my God, cut them up and all sorts. But her energy, you know, I was shocked and I was like, and but her energy actually helped me when I allowed that to integrate with me. That energy helped me clear energy out of housing, property. You know, I'd bring it in when there was some really heavy duty stuff. So that part of self, I didn't have to use it in maybe the way she was using it, but I was definitely able to use it and utilize it this lifetime. And it made a bit of a difference. And loving that bit, not thinking, oh, you know, and staying away from it, just actually allowing it to be there and using it in a you know, positive way, I suppose.
Yeah. So you listening to you speak now, it seems that the intention behind the energy is the deciding factor on whether you use it in such a way that it's scary or you use it in such a way that it's healing. You know, it's the intention with which you're using the energy and harnessing that energy.
Yeah.
I find that listening to you, Bev, like talking about that you had this gift of knowing how to unravel the voodoo. I sometimes get these downloads where I know things and I don't know how I know them. And my shadow side tends to be, oh, Claudia, who do you think you are? You know, it has that voice. Like if I suddenly realized that I could do some voodoo or I understood voodoo, I'd be saying to myself, who do you think you are to think that you could do that? You know, so I have this kind of like limiting belief around my talents and around the things that I put out into the world. It's like when Juliet asked me to start Witch Bitch with her and to start talking to people and bringing these stories out into the community, I had the initial reaction in me was, Claude, you can't do that. What are you doing? What are you thinking? Like, you on camera? You hate cameras. You hate being, you know, in the public eye. You hate all of that stuff. What makes you think that you people want to see you? You know, it was that voice in my mind, in my being, that's kind of like testing me constantly. And I think learning how to say, okay, yes, thank you for your opinion. Thank you for voicing, you know, the antithesis of what I want to do, but then choosing, you know, having the intention, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to go and do it anyway. You know, I don't know who I am. Maybe through this experience, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not going to stop me from making the decision to do something that's amazing or to believe in myself that I can do it. And that's what I'm hearing in what you're saying. Like, I feel like it's so incredible that you have this ability to say, well, I know voodoo now. Like, I don't know how I know it. I just know that I can deal with this and go ahead and do it. Like, I would stop from that moment and say, how the hell do you know voodoo? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a huge thing, a huge step in the right direction to be able to say, I see you, Shadow. I see you there. I know that you're telling me I can't do it. I know that you have your doubts, but I know I can do it. So I'm going to go and do it.
Oh,
it's massive.
So that's not exactly how it happens for me, Claudia. I'll go, oh, okay.
Yeah, it freaks you out. Yeah.
And then I'll go, okay, let me see what the body's going to show me, what's going to tell me.
Yeah.
And because I've probably been doing shadow work for 20 years by then, I trusted my spirit.
Yeah,
so
right.
my spirit would just come right in and take over. So a lot of the times when I'm working with people with their shadow, I sort of step to the side and allow the energies to work through me.
Yeah, beautiful.
I totally trust that. I
Mm.
totally trust that I'm clear enough for the person that's standing in front of me
Mm.
and that I'll be able to help them in some way.
Yeah,
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's often, those who are drawn to us in that sort of mission is to, they're drawn to us because they relate to us in that we have also had this type of experience, or that part of shadow itself is within us as well. So it's that reflection thing again, isn't it? That magnetizes it in. But it's debilitating. Sometimes our shadow can really take us on some wild journeys, and I know for myself, for many, many years running the shadow self, and, call myself Drama Mandy, because that's what I was in that state, I was forever in some sort of drama, and it was like, oh my goodness, but always knowing that actually wasn't who I was. And that was, for people, I think, that don't have that awareness or that feeling, that deeper feeling that actually this is something playing out, it's not actually who I am. I think it must be very hard to, well, I know it has been for many people that haven't had that awareness, that it is hard to recognize themselves in that state and feel that that is who they are. As is with our parents' shadow, we can sort of grow up believing that we are them as well, that stuff's ours and it wasn't actually from them, which we find that out later on, that it's been programmed patterns and different habitual things that have been, sent or grown with us as we've grown up with those that are in those spaces.
Yeah, that's so true. That's how those ancestral patterns get passed down through the generations. And when we have that limiting belief that, well, I was raised that way, or my mum was that way, so there's a high chance I'll be that way, or that it's carried through the DNA as well. Like sometimes we can think that familial things are carried down through the DNA. We get trapped in that mindset that we're not in control of what is going on in our lives, or the choices that we're making. Because we're not aware, and because we've put it down to the fact that it's carried through my family lineage. But when we stop and sort of look at it and go, hang on a minute, okay, it might be hard, but if I can take control of this and change it in myself, you're putting a stop to it for you and for the coming generations, and you're healing the generations behind as well.
Yes.
That's exactly what's kept me going doing the work. Is healing 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. And I don't necessarily, I do notice it in one daughter, but I don't notice it so much in the other, but I notice it in my grandchildren. So it's like the way that they are stepping up and being themselves is just a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah. I think the more aware we are of our choices and what our patterns are and where they came from, and have that intention and the desire to free ourselves from those patterns, the easier it gets down the line. The easier it is for our children to break it and their children to break it, and so on and so on. And I think it's important to know also that change can come in an instant. Like if you're telling yourself, oh, it's difficult, oh, it's too hard, oh, I can't see the path, or I don't know how to do it, then I think you are reinforcing that. Whereas if you realize that actually change can come in an instant, it can just happen like that. You can make the decision and it can start the flow. Like taking the dam, taking the dam off, and then the water just flows.
Yes.
It's important to know that can happen, that's a reality.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And you know, I mean, I don't live in my story anymore, but I do share my story because of the space that I was in that shadow. And for people to see the shift, you know, from who I was to where I am now and who I am, in that work, you know, running workshops or whatever, it gives them that knowing that they also can shift this, that they don't have to be putting up with the pain and the frustration. I was just so frustrated. I was frustrated that what I wanted to leave me and go and move on was actually not doing that, you know. And even though I understood where it was from, I saw the threads, understood the program, it was like that didn't remove it, and it didn't stop me reacting to everything that still just kept piling itself at me, you know. So yeah, that was, and I grew more angry through that frustration because I couldn't change it. It wasn't until I got the right tools and understood those tools, you know, because I had the understanding of it, but I just couldn't actually move it out of my body, which, you know, the cellular work does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's freeing.
You said you
Yes.
were, what did you say, drama Mandy? And I was victim Bev.
Oh, right.
I was a victim to everything all around me. It was not my fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, so I have a, I guess because I had such deep trauma as a child, it's taken a long time for me to unravel my story because, you know, like for me, I could not do it in an instant because it would have destroyed my nervous system.
Yeah, right.
Because it was way too much. And I've done pretty much all of my healing through my body. So my body has been, one of my teachers goes, the body holds all memory of all times and never lies.
Yes.
So even if my mind was having a, you know, could work stuff out, my body needed to catch up. And, you know, some of our stories are thousands and thousands of years old.
Yes,
they're not
absolutely.
just in this lifetime. So to unwind all of those stories takes time.
Does.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it's taken me years too.
Yeah.
I think
And it's nice, like I know there's lots of tools around like tapping and sound healing and all of that. But I think they just settle the nervous system. They don't actually get to that deep core. So it's like, well, the first 10-day workshop I attended, I was letting everybody else talk because I didn't think my trauma was so bad until I started speaking.
Right.
And my story needed witnessing. And I think there's a lot of people that need their story witnessed because if you've never spoken it, well, I never had. My mother had a thing, least said, soonest mended. So nobody ever spoke about anything. So this was, you know, have that witnessed was so healing.
That's huge.
Yeah, and I don't want to hear people tell me the same story 100 times over. That's not healing. But to have that story witnessed and then to bring the sound in or whatever healing energy comes is really helpful.
Yes, it is. And I know that for myself too. I hadn't, you know, I think as children or growing up, we don't actually go around saying to everybody what's going on, do we? We just keep it to ourselves and truck on. And you're taught to, you know, how are you? Oh, fine, thank you. Put a smile on and just keep trucking, you know. And it's not until I myself heard myself explaining my story to somebody, and I had a quivering moment where I realized actually this is actually quite heavy duty. Like, you know, hearing it and feeling like, well, if this was somebody else, how would I be feeling about that for them? And it was like, well, gosh, this is actually quite big. So it is that, and voicing is very important for sure.
I remember saying to my girls, because, you know, my husband was quite, he was quite violent, but mostly it was energetically violent.
Yeah.
And I'd say to my girls, shh, don't say anything outside the house. This is something that we keep here. So, you know, I was perpetrating exactly how I'd been brought up. And
Mm,
it took a long time to be able to convince them, hey, you're allowed to speak. You know,
yeah.
it was like, that was traumatic, what we were going through.
Mm, yes. I know it is. It's it does take years. It's not that you're going to, because often with one situation you have 1,000 underneath it, or 100 of them at least, and it's like those experiences have just compounded, and it's getting right down into the core of the one that created the whole thing and crystallized it all. That is what's important, and it does take time, and that's that layering, the onion skins, taking off each layer and moving through.
I guess the decision to start unraveling that onion, the decision to say, okay, enough's enough now. That's what doesn't take much. Like, that's the thing that you can just click and say, right, I've had enough of this. Yep. I'm going to start. The work may take years, but that decision to undam the dam is what doesn't really take. Like, you can do that.
The plug out.
Absolutely.
Pull the plug out. That's it. Yep. I'm pulling it out, and I'm not doing this cycle anymore. I'm getting off the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Because a situation happened to me recently where my son plays AFL, and he absolutely loves it. Like, he's so passionate about playing AFL. He loves everything about it. And he's in the under 12s, and they just start around the under 12s. They start to take it seriously. Like, up until this year, they were playing and they weren't keeping score and things like that. Whereas now they're kind of counting the numbers. They're seeing where they are in the ladder with other teams and that sort of thing. And his team didn't play very well this year. And they were at their decided game to see if they were going to be in the finals or not. So this game was deciding it for them, and they lost. And he was devastated, absolutely crushed. And he cried in front of everybody, and he cried, he did the ugly cry. He really let it out. And, and for a boy to do that in front of all the parents, all the kids, he did not care. He was so sad and so disappointed that they lost, that it just poured out of him. And my husband was uncomfortable. All the parents were uncomfortable with this show of complete devastation. And it triggered me too. Like, it was because I'm his mum. So it's like my parenting is on display for everybody to see. And social norms, like social norms went out the window. There was no social norms with this display of emotion. But I was so, like, I could see, I was watching myself. It was like I was watching this play out, and I could see how uncomfortable it was making me. But I knew it wasn't mine, that uncomfortable feeling. I knew it wasn't mine, because I was so proud of him being able to just let it out in the moment and not carry it inside him, just leave it there on the pitch. And so, knowing that, the difference between the proudness, like the happiness, actually it wasn't even pride, it was just happy for him that he could get it out of himself, and this uncomfortable feeling of everybody watching him and going, what's going on with that kid? And it was a pivotal moment for me, because it was like, why can't we just let it out and leave it on the pitch and move on? Like, do the tantrum, get it out of your body. Like, you know, why can't we be accepting of that stuff? That's the question that started to come out of me after that.
Yes.
Why is it such a big thing to watch a child show their emotion?
Exactly.
Especially in sport, because we, you know, for kids, sport is that, it's that expression of all of that stuff in them. They're running around, they're sweating, they're getting into it, they're in competition with each other, they're trying to get the ball. Like, it's all emotion, it's all physical. So for them, you know, and particularly for my son, like, he gives everything, and they didn't know what to do with it.
But that's it. We've been taught. I mean, even you know, you would have heard your parents, you know, quiet. What will the neighbours think?
Yeah,
No,
100%.
it's like, just always we were told to, you know, and taught to, be squashed in, and I totally. I came to a day where I realised I was holding my energy self in. I was retracting to make people feel comfortable. And I just decided one day I'm not doing it anymore. I've been doing it for my mum all my life as a kid, and it just kept trucking on. I didn't realise till one day I realised, and then it was like, oh my God, I've been doing this all my life. And then I realised, no, I'm going to just let myself be me, and if anyone has an issue, it's not my problem anymore. I'm just not taking that in or on, you know.
Because we can't carry everybody else on top of us all our lives.
No,
that's so tiring.
And we try and pack people back together when they start doing the ugly cry.
Yes.
You know, it's like, shh. You see people packing, like, you know, when I've run retreats and that, when people are doing that ugly cry, then somebody wants to pack them, and I'm like, don't touch, let them get it out.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to get all of that emotion out that has been stored when we lost the footy game or the netball game or the whatever it is that we weren't allowed to. We need to be able to express that without anybody's uncomfortableness or trying to get us back in our box.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
So congratulations to your son for being able to allow that out. That's just so good.
Yeah, I used to be like that as a child. Like, well, I see myself in him, because I used to have these deep feelings. Like, he'll come to me just out of the blue, and he'll hug me, and he'll be like, "I love you so much, Mum," and I'm like, oh, he just feels it so deeply. And I remember as a child having feelings like that. Like, you know, just overwhelming me. They just come over me. And I used to run up to my mum or my dad, and I used to tell them, because it's so big, it's so overflowing and spilling out of me, that I had to tell, like, I just wanted to share it with them. And they'd look at me like, you know, what's wrong with you, child? Why? This is so strange. It's out of the blue. But when he does it, because I remember how it made me feel, I acknowledge the feelings. I say to him, you feel it so deeply, don't you? I can see it in you. You're feeling it. And he's like, yeah, Mum, I don't know what to do with it. There's so much. And I'm like, just let it out. Let it out. What else can you do?
Yeah. Well,
you know, what else can you do with it? You just got to let it out. And that's what he did on the pitch that day. And knowing that my son can do that and not be embarrassed and not stand there and notice everybody looking at him and feeling that judgment, that he just was so caught up in the moment and so into what he was feeling that he didn't even notice them. They weren't even part of it for him. It was just totally the container of his body, and it all coming out of him. And I wish that for people, you know, like, I wish that for all of us. I wish that we could all, you know, maybe I think to myself, maybe one of the parents saw that going on, or one of the kids saw that going on and thought, yeah, I know that feeling. I've been in that position,
Yeah.
but I wasn't brave enough to let it out.
Mm.
So maybe the next time they'll be like, Bryn did it, I can do it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's what comes out of it.
Yeah. There'll be a mixture of comments and thoughts that would have gone through people's heads, though,
Because they were talking about it weeks later.
A boy, you'll be a wimp,
it.
grow up, like harden up, boy, that sort of thing that goes on too, doesn't it?
Yeah, but nobody said it.
I also wonder if he was feeling for everybody else in the team as well.
Yeah.
Oh,
he was expressing
bound to
for
be.
all of
Yes.
them.
Yeah, for sure.
True. I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah. It is. It's the collective. We forget about the collective shadow as well.
Yeah.
I know that some of the work that I've done around shadow has been for the collective.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
It's not
same.
all about me. Because sometimes I'll do stuff and I go, oh my God, there's no way I could be holding all of that in my body. I know there's more to this than
Absolutely, eh?
Yeah.
I know many times that's happened for me too, and for humanity and the planet, the whole thing. But it's big, and it is too much for one. But it's not ours, all of ours, not at all.
All of ours.
Too much.
I had a really big lesson driving on the motorway in Auckland around what happens outside of you. I'm driving along just in my own little dream world, and suddenly these words are in my head, like words I don't even think of, and the expression was nasty as.
Wow.
And I'm like, and I looked across, and there in the car was this guy just screaming at the girl that was in the car with him. And I went, oh, it's not even mine, nothing to do with me.
Wow.
But the words were all in my head.
Wow, that's incredible.
Sensitives, we just pick up everything that's going on around us. It belongs to us as well. So it's not all of ours, but for some reason we become the conduit for releasing it. I think that's why, as star seeds, earth beings, whatever we are, I think that's part of our role is to release for the collective as well.
Yes, right. Definitely. Yeah.
Yes, I think that about your son. I'm pretty sure he's, and it's interesting. I have a granddaughter who is, I think she's 7, and she's very much the same. But until you put that into words, I hadn't actually connected the dots. Yeah, she just cries, and she'll cry for an hour. And there's no consoling her whatsoever. But I think she's so sensitive to the energies around her that's her way of moving them through.
Definitely.
Such an interesting time we're living in right now. It really is.
It really is. It really, really is.
Yep.
And there's so much of that type of thing going on at the moment. I'm hearing a lot of people say that there's been thoughts that have come through their mind that is not who, that they knew it wasn't theirs. They knew in the moment it wasn't theirs. There's a lot of that being picked up around everywhere and thrown around. Like it seems to be there's got a lot more aggressive energy too on the planet, It's quite out there, but all good, it's all got its purpose, hasn't it?
It's the shadows really being brought to the surface.
Absolutely.
And it's people like us that are holding that light energy because we've cleared our shadow. We can be that conduit to bring heaven here on earth.
Yeah.
And we'll also be the ones that can hold a space for others to release their shadow as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I find there's fear waves. Man, there's some fear waves. And just recently I was in that wave. It was like, holy heck, where's this coming from? Because it wasn't me. It wasn't my fears. I could connect them up to something if I really, wanted to play the game. That could be that, or that. but actually it wasn't. It was really just intensified from what was going on the planet and with the, you know, the environment around me. But yeah, it can be. And I think, you know, I know a lot of people are riding these waves, you know, at the moment too. And it's unnerving. I think a lot of people are getting very, you know, insecure around this state of frequency.
Yeah, because it seems to all, like Beverly said, it's all coming up to the surface.
Pushed up, yeah.
It's being released, and that energy has to go somewhere, doesn't it? And it kind of spills out, like my son, it all spilled out of him. It's got to spill out somehow, and we're feeling it. We're all feeling it. The sensitives, the people who are in touch with this stuff,
yes,
and in touch with themselves and their feelings. We're feeling it, and we're recognizing it. Because I went through it. I've spent the past probably month and a half, so about 6 weeks on that roller coaster, and trying to figure out, is it mine? Is it not mine? You know, like, no, it's not mine. It's not coming from me. You know, and then there's that self-loathing that comes with it, because you're in that fear and you're like, I thought I peeled that layer off, you know, and now it's a deeper layer, and what am I doing? You know, like, and it's like this roller coaster of emotions and doubts and fears and everything. And being able to recognize that it's not yours, I think, makes it a lot easier to navigate and to allow it to go.
Yes. Move it.
You know,
just let it go through, It's like, just let it flow through.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we do hook into it and get a little narrative going on. You know, like I say, we can put it into our story if we want to.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, it was like, well, actually, you know, I've done this stuff. But I can feel when that's happening. I'm feeling for those who aren't aware of it being there, and somebody who's really entrenched in that shadow space with their own fear and their own, you know, maybe anger, because I know sometimes it brings up a lot of anger. It's like that there just gets amplified with those sorts of waves, and then all of a sudden we have this crazy going on, you know, in our communities, and everything just gets heightened, just amplified.
Yeah, we had in Perth. I mean, Perth doesn't really have much crime. Well, it has crime, but this woman got stabbed in the supermarket. She was stacking the shelves, and another woman came by and stabbed her. What?
Wow.
And I'm like, yes, it's like all of that rage is just coming up in people, because, you know, apart from not being allowed to cry, we're not allowed to express our anger either.
No.
You know, it's like,
no,
we don't know safe ways of doing it.
No.
You know, I remember, I didn't have any, of course. But it used to build in me until suddenly it would just burst out of me uncontrollably. I remember clearing 2 netball courts with my rage.
Did you?
I did. Well, I was protecting another woman. Well, you know, it's a long story, but this woman had been picked on, and finally they picked on her for the last time in my books, and I just lost it. And we had 2 netball courts full of people and all the supporters. When I'd finished yelling, there was me and the girl I was yelling at. So that was my suppressed rage. You know, I just would keep pushing it down until the plug came out.
Yeah.
How did you feel afterwards, though, Bev, when you realised that everybody had scarpered?
I'm very embarrassed, actually.
Isn't it funny, though? See, that's it. We go into that embarrassment when...
Yeah.
Really?
Oh,
yeah, the shame comes over, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. The shame it's a weird thing, isn't it? I mean, we know why. We've all been programmed this way, and society's kept us in these, you know, comfy boxes. Everyone just do
Yeah.
as you're told and don't step outside of that, because otherwise you're going to get judged and you'll get punished. You know, and punishment's a big thing. We all expect, pardon me, to be punished for any little thing.
Mm.
Well, I
That's
finally learnt how to do it healthily. So I used to have a punching bag and a baseball bat.
Oh, that's
And
a good
I
one.
would just, and because use not your fists, but the baseball bat, because it actually was connecting to your heart, so you could really get a
swing
good
on.
swing. But I wouldn't just swing at it. I would actually use my words as well.
Yeah,
So
right.
if I was really angry at my
Oh, I'd
husband, I
have
would
to.
put,
Yeah,
yeah, you have to use your words
yeah.
too, because otherwise it still runs around in there.
Yeah, no, I couldn't do it silently.
Yeah, hang on, because no, but I also found I needed others to hold me in that space as well. It
Mm,
wasn't just something I could go out and do on my own. It was like I had a group of very close friends that would hold that energy while I processed it out. I remember the
mm,
first time my hands were covered in blisters because once it started coming, it didn't want to stop. But
yeah.
that was, 40 years of holding it in and holding it in, except at inappropriate times.
That's the thing, eh? You never know. You never know quite when it's going to
So
just
it was really
break.
nice to have a safe place
Mm,
where it didn't affect anybody else,
yes,
you
yeah.
know, because we don't want our energies or our rage to affect others. So
No.
having a safe space to do that,
Mm,
um, you know,
yes. And I
mm,
think I think there's a lot of intolerance. I know there is a lot of intolerance around now, isn't there? You know, on the planet with many different areas and time. But yeah, a lot of intolerance. And yeah, again, it's creating that anger and frustration and all sorts of things.
Yeah,
mm,
because we haven't learned how to deal with our anger as a collective.
no,
You
No.
know, we punish people who are angry. We shame people who are angry, who show
no,
their
Yeah.
anger. And anger is an emotion just like any other. It exists, so it
Yes.
has its place
Yep.
among us.
It
yeah,
You
does.
know, and being able to express anger in a healthy way, I think, allows you to not control it, but contain it to a certain
Mm,
degree, where you aren't bursting out in inappropriate times.
yes.
You know, so you're letting, it's like a pressure cooker. You're undoing the valve and letting the
That's right.
steam out before it blows by
Mm,
itself. I mean,
mm,
there are businesses that actually make money from this stuff. Like, they're called rage rooms, where you can go and you can smash TVs and you can,
oh,
you know,
yes. I
throw
saw
bottles,
something
and
like
yeah,
that.
and
Yes.
they
yeah,
kit you up in a helmet and a, you know, so you're all safe, and then you can go in and smash things. And yeah, so
yeah.
yeah, that's that's a
That
new
would be
thing that I
fun, though.
saw a couple of years ago.
The
I
other
think it's
thing
awesome.
I was just thinking
Yeah.
about with rage and how it comes out, because
Mm,
that is our shadow, and a lot of times I would be yelling at my girls, which had nothing to do with them.
yeah.
It was that I
Yes.
didn't have anywhere else to put it,
Yeah.
and sorry girls, but that's where it came.
Mm,
They'd do one thing wrong and I'd be yelling.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that became an ingrained pattern that
Mm,
it was safer to yell at them because they were little,
Yeah.
yeah.
rather than take my frustration out where it belonged, or, you know, say to the person that had upset me,
Mm,
this is
mm.
what's happening.
Yeah.
Mm.
And each part of these shadows, I tried to get rid of all my anger. I didn't, I'm was about peace, love, and light for me. I didn't want to be angry
Oh,
anymore, and I know, and there was just no way. I mean, it's a warning sign for us as well. Our anger, it can be like danger, danger. Um, but I remember the day that I was trying to. I'd worked through it that week, and I thought, right, that's my anger's not going to be around anymore. And then I was going to pick some children up to take them to the picture theatre over here. And I went to a friend's who shared a driveway with another person. And this person was a real ego maniac who was just, drama. Anyway, 4 dogs. He had big dogs, and they would jump on your vehicle and scratch your cars as you drive through, because you're trying to go slow, not to hit them. It was a little, country-ish driveway. Anyway, I drove down and I came back with the kids, and he came out and he stopped me on the track, and he's standing there with his foot up on the front of my car, and his 4 dogs are all at my windows, and the kids were like, "Ooh." And I said to him, "What's happening? What do you want?" He said, he was some stupid thing. He was trying to tell me that I'd pushed over his glow light thing on the side of the road there. I hadn't even touched it. It was just him being a drama. Anyway, it wasn't until he would not move himself. It was not until I got angry and I stepped out of the car. By then, I didn't give a hoot about the dogs or him. I was just going to do something now. And it wasn't until I stepped out of the car, got angry, and I said, "What do you want?" Like this. And he just sort of stepped back a bit. He thought, "Holy hecker, I think I better, and he did. He started backing off, and I just said to him, "You're just an egg." And I got back in the car, and I said to him, "If your dogs are in the way, I don't give a shit. Actually, right now, I'm just going to hit them. If they get hit, they get hit." "Oh yeah, hit them," he says. He was just a dick. Oh. Yes. And he was. Anyway, and he got out of the way. I just started the car and started going, And then it was at the top of the drive, I stopped and I took a breath, and I thought, oh my God, like that could have gone really badly, but it didn't. And I got then, Spirit said to me, "You can't get rid of all your anger. Your anger's needed in situations sometimes like that particular one." I was like, yeah, okay. So we can use it positively, even in shit situations. Yeah. But yeah, funny.
Yep. I remember stopping a guy hitting his girlfriend with my anger.
Me too.
Yeah. I just went, "You don't do that." And
yes.
it's like, because people are not used to stepping in. People don't step in and say, "Don't do that," or
yes.
And I just stepped in, and it was like he went, "Oh."
You shocked him.
Yeah.
I shocked him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shocked myself too. But sometimes we need to stand up. I do find that I stand up for everybody else. If I see somebody being a victim of something, that's when I, rush in ranges of fear to tread, really.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing. And I'm not afraid of that either. I'm not,
No.
It's not been a part of me that I ever wanted to get rid of,
No.
It's always been useful many, many, many times.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so
our shadow definitely has some gifts.
We can't all sit just omming for
No.
and expect it all to,
No, that's spiritual bypassing, isn't it?
It's
Recognize the shadow.
It totally is. And I feel like it's like spiritual warriors that want to take up and do the shadow work. It's not those that just want to sit in meditation. It's like
they are courageous souls.
Yeah, and I think now we need more spiritual warriors than we need meditators.
We do.
But we also need both. And I find that I do both. I will stand up and be that warrior, but I also will take that time out to tune into myself. Not necessarily sitting in lotus position. I'll take myself to the beach and sit on a rock, or I'm definitely more of a active meditator. I'd rather
me too.
Sit with the whales like I did on Saturday or Friday, and just be in that beautiful energy and send out that love energy to the rest of the planet. It's like we need a balance of both.
We do, and I feel so many going through the dark night of the soul at this moment too, and over these last couple of years, really, it's really activated people into that awareness of self and going, needing to, requiring themselves to go deeper and sit in that awareness and wisdom. Yeah, and clear out, whether you want to or not. The energy on the planet is just throwing it up in your face. It's there's no more sitting and like you say, just umming, and it's just not going to work anymore. We've got to take some action. And
so true. About the dark night of the soul, because that's what I woke up with this morning. I went, the planets in the dark night of the soul.
It so is.
Yeah. But those are the words that just jumped into my mind this morning.
Yeah, it is. And I see it everywhere. I see people in all walks of life in it. And I know they're in it. You can sense it, you feel it from them. And it's a very daunting, it is a daunting place, been there, done that, but it's, you're held in limbo, really. It's quite a limbo space, and there's no future trajectory anywhere. You're not seeing where you can go forward to. So you're made to sit in it, be here, and just stop, look, and listen, really, and get on with it. But it's very uncomfortable.
Mandy, that's so true. I feel that too. I feel like I'm in a container of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like it's so strong, the forcing, that feeling of not being able to look away, because it is absolutely everywhere.
Yeah.
You're not able to distract yourself. You're not able to turn a blind eye anymore, because it's just so in your face and so everywhere, so prevalent in our lives. It's you walk down the street and you see the C word everywhere. Wear your masks, do this, walk this way, go that way, like the controllingness of it, and the absolute, those parameters that they've put us in, and seeing people so afraid to step outside of those parameters, and that anger that's building up in people, the frustration and the anger that's building up in people, because they're not able to express themselves as human beings, because they're not able to just go about their day like they normally would, because they've got to think of this, they've got to think of that, they've got to think of that person, and they've got to, what's that person going to think of me if I don't wear a mask? What that person going to say to me? My daughter was on the train and she wasn't wearing one, and she got verbally attacked, almost physically attacked.
Yes.
And the train wasn't even full. There was only a few people in the compartment, and this woman was so taken by the fear of her not wearing a mask that she was willing to almost physically attack her. She got right up in her face. And it's like irrational fear, because if she's not wearing a mask, why would you be in her face? So really, you're not scared of her breathing. You're not really scared of the germs. What are you scared of then? That's the question, because you are getting in her face, which is getting closer to the germs, getting closer to the threat, the perceived threat. So I think it's like it's all bubbling up, and it's everywhere you look, in everybody. Like you look into somebody's eyes and you can see it. You can see somebody driving in their car wearing it. There's people swimming.
Yes.
There's photos of people in the water wearing a mask. There's photos I've seen of people in an orchestra playing wind instruments with a mask on with a hole in it.
Yes.
So it's not rational.
No,
it's not rational whatsoever, and it's being able to take a step back, being able to see what's going on, and being able to kind of like conceptualize the fact that it's fear, but it's not rational fear.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the difference.
Yeah.
That people are just going through the motions because they're told to. They're not afraid of the germ. They're afraid of what's going to happen if they don't comply.
They don't comply. That's right.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
living
where the
in that.
meditation part
Yeah.
comes to it, is that when we can stay in our centre, and I've proved this many times, and I'll just send a bubble of love to that person, because the whole aim of that is to separate us. I don't want to be separated from any of them.
Mm.
I just want to bubble them in love, and let's be present with each other, because otherwise the end game is won and we are left floundering.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like coming into that space and just using the love that pours through us to help others.
And that's so hard, Bev, when you're in it and it's in your face and it's shouting at you.
For. But that's what we're training for.
Exactly.
We're training to stay calm in the chaos.
Yeah.
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 Because those last 2 years really brought my shadow back. It was like, holy man, I could just step right in here and annihilate people. That's how I felt. I was just wanting to wipe the earth clean.
Yes.
And honestly, it was just unreal. And I really had to work on processing those, and those moments were really, really big.
Yeah.
And like I say, with the fear waves and then the intolerance waves, you know, of people being so senseless, like they're just not thinking, they're just complying. And it's like, oh my goodness, you know, even today, if somebody says to me, where's your mask? Have you got a I just want to right in there, like leap on them like a blinking Oh, it's just like, and I just feel like saying to them, are you for real? Like, actually, you're still on that freaking journey, because I left that a long time ago, you know, but it just frustrates. And when I go into that space and into those emotions, it's like, what are you doing? Come back into the space here and just breathe. Like, you know, none of your business. They're playing their game, they're doing their thing, none of your business. It's when they put it in my face that I get annoyed, and then I get annoyed. But it's not my game, and that's, you know, and yet it is, because it is our game. It's all of our game. We all created it, and it's about shifting it for sure. But man, it's had some moments.
Not easy, is it?
No,
not easy.
Not at all. Not at all. So, you know,
not easy.
That I've got these beautiful people that I can go to when I need a bit of extra help with my own shadow energy that comes up. Because it's just my interpretation, but I don't think we can do it all on our own.
No.
I think our conscious mind is so strong that it doesn't allow us to get into the unconscious and what's happening beneath the surface.
Yeah.
So, you know, I do feel very blessed that there's people in the world that can hold a space if I get back into that spot where I want to kill everybody in sight.
The old bat out.
I found that when it got too overwhelming for me, I went into a cave. Like, I would just hide in my little cave, and you know, and I kind of I'd never noticed that about myself before, that I could do that I would just remove myself from the situation and go and hibernate. But the last couple of years has shown me that that's my pattern, that's what I tend to do. And so, Bev, you saying that, you know, you can't do it on your own, that you need the help, I think that's so important, because when I'm in my cave, I'm not thinking about getting help. You know, I'm not thinking that I'm just thinking, oh, I'm hunkered down in here, I'm safe.
Yes.
That's not a great way to live either, you know, like.
No.
Is it, do you think, like, is it a burying your head in it, you reckon, Claudia, or is it just, I need to come back to this and let that all stay out there for the moment? Yes,
it's a self-preservation thing, and it's if I feel overwhelmed by something, I tend to not bury my head in the sand, because I'm still aware of what's going on.
Observing it in that, yeah.
It's more of a stationary thing. Like I won't venture far from home. I won't, like unless I really, really have to, things like that. Like it affects my choices.
Yes.
I'll try and it's like stay in my little lane. I'll just cull the strings that have me going here and have me going there. I'll block them off, and I'll start making decisions that keep me close to my family and to my house and to the things that are important to me. And then when I start to feel safe again, I'll start venturing out a little bit more. But I didn't notice it about myself until the last couple of years. And so that's now kind of like I'm going, okay, Claude, you got to get a handle on that, because you can't allow your stress and this feeling of overwhelm, or, my nervous system feeling overloaded, to affect the decisions that I make in my day-to-day life.
Yeah.
I still need to feel free. I still need to feel that I can be myself and have a life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was I think a big part of the beauty in the lockdown. There were many things in the first big lockdown. There were many, many things that came out of that were just gorgeous, and I loved it. Was that we could just hunker down. We could just focus on our immediate, what we were in that home, and not have to really worry too much about anyone else, although we did. But yeah, it was good in many ways.
Yeah, because that
was necessary.
That, I think, like everything we've talked about today, it's about balance and intention. So I think that having that lockdown, it helped me wake up to a lot of stuff, because I had the time and there was no distractions.
Yeah.
I had the time to really look at myself, my life, take evaluation, reprioritize things and all of that. And it gave me the space to see things that were going on in the world that I had been saying previously, oh gosh, it's so upside down. Why is it like that? But never having the time to explore the answers to those questions. And then when the lockdown happened, I had that time to really start looking into things and why I was feeling the way I was and why things seemed so upside down, because they were upside down in my life as well, as not just my life, but outside as well, like big corporation decisions, things that were going on in my job, and in the company that I was working for and in my life. So it was like from the macro to the micro, it's all happening. And so I had the time in lockdown to really unravel all of that, which helped wake me up, because I've only been awake for the last 2 years. And so, it kind of helped me to wake up to what was going on. So in that sense, it was a great thing. Like you say, Mandy, it was amazing. But it's when you get stuck in there and you start running back into your safe little cave every time something scares you, that it becomes a controlling thing in your life. It's not you using it as a tool anymore. It's a crutch. And I think I'm at that point now where I'm like, okay, Claude, like, is this serving you or is it hindering you? And I think having people that you can go to, like you were saying, Bev, for the help, when you've got those people in your life and you reach out into your community and into the people that you trust, that knowing that about yourself, okay, I see this pattern emerging, I'm not happy with it, I've got to reach out now, which is huge, because people don't tend to ask for help.
No,
that's right.
It's really hard.
My trigger is I find myself crying at the ads on telly.
Right. That's your indication that you've got it right. I need some cleansing here.
Yours is you bury yourself, and I'm like, oh, I go back into my victim. I'm back in the victim mode.
Yeah.
So it's like I need a little assistance, and I might go to Mandy or I might go to somebody else, whoever it is, and I'll just, okay, now I can get back out in the world and expand again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're actually not serving anybody much by hiding away.
No.
We're not serving anybody really.
No, we've been hiding away forever, really.
Yeah, well,
You know.
because
This is the big breakout, isn't it? You know?
Yeah.
we're on our
The more
way.
shadow we
Here we
uncover,
are.
the more we get out
are.
there, you know.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it can be one of the that was one of the hardest things for me to get to grips, was learning how to ask people for help.
Mm.
Because I wouldn't. I was taught to just do it all yourself. Be, God, struggle and hardship. That was my program.
Yeah.
I had to do it all myself. I couldn't ask anyone for help me. God, that would show a bit of weakness or vulnerability, and ridiculous, eh? It is.
Yeah,
when you
my
think
thing is
back.
I don't want to bother people. Like, I don't want to, it's my problem. I should deal with it. I don't want to burden
Yes,
somebody else.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, well, that's why there's healers here on the planet that have done the work, that hold a space for those that need
Exactly.
to do the next bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually look at my family, and my brothers, and especially my brothers, they've spent all their life working and building up empires. Whereas I've just followed my heart and just really had to go deep inside of myself to so that I can hold space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's I think now more than ever, everyone is involved in moving some of this, shadow that's playing out on the planet and through everyone. But mostly it was ones like yourself and us here that we sort of put our hand up and said we were going to do it all for our families, and the ancestral stuff, all of it. And it's been huge. But it's getting shared around a bit now, Frequency on the planet, of course, is pushing everybody into that space and making them look.
Yeah.
Some ignore, of course, but very cool. Well, ladies, we have done just over an hour. That's gone very quickly, and
yeah, very quickly.
It was lovely chatting with you both, and
it's great.
Yeah,
it's so much fun.
It was. We'll do it again. We will do it again. That will be great. Some point. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in, and I can feel from this conversation that a lot of people could get a lot of help and assistance through with some of that. So thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who's tuned in and kept us here listening and chatting. So take good care, and we'll see you all out there.
Yeah. Thanks, Mandy. See ya.